Hi, I'm Michael Smith for Nevada Trails. Today I have a very special guest, Martin Griffith, who actually hiked the Emigrant Trail. And did you tell me that it's like 650 miles?
I did, Michael.
Are you sure?
Yes, 650 miles.
Now, you told me 650 miles, but you also said you did it during the period when they did it when it was hot.
Yes, Michael, we wanted to have an authentic experience to see what it was like for the immigrants. So we started July 28th up in southern Idaho where the California Trail branched off the Oregon Trail. Finished up in the middle of September at Tragedy Springs on the other side of Carson Pass, about 10 miles. So we went across Nevada in August and early September when the immigrants did. And the whole idea was to see what it was like. And I'm going to be honest, Michael, it was one of the most foolish decisions I made. We made it in the winter, and we had no idea how that heat would just grind us down. But the purpose was to see what it was like to come west the way the immigrants did between 1841 and 1869, and we found out. And there were more than 250,000 pioneers who took this trail. It was the first highway across Nevada. And we started up in southern Idaho, like I said, where the California Trail branched south off the Oregon Trail. The trail then drops down to the extreme northeast corner of Nevada, where Utah, Idaho, and Nevada intersect each other. And then it goes about 100 miles down to the Humboldt River. 2/3 of the trail in Nevada is along the Humboldt River. And then from there, the immigrants in the Lovelock area had a choice of routes. We took the Carson River route, which was one of the most popular gateways to the gold fields during the gold rush. We took the 40-mile desert down to Ragtown on the Carson River just west of Fallon. Followed the Carson River all the way up through Dayton, Carson City, Carson Valley, to Woodfords, up through Hope Valley, and then by what is now Caples Lake, and crossed the final pass and finished up at Tragedy Springs. So I'm going to show some of the slides, if I could, of the trip we took, and it was in 1991, and these shots would be from late July 1991. The first one you see behind me, we're in Junction Valley. It's a remote, lonely valley just south of the city of Rocks in Idaho. And if you look carefully in the shot, you'll see some of the authentic ruts there that were left by the covered wagon pioneers. And they're heading there for Granite Pass. And on the other side of that ridge there, that mountain range, is Goose Creek and Nevada. And it's interesting, I told you it's where the three states meet together. In one morning, we started out in Idaho. Then we did several miles of hiking in Utah, and then ended up camping and finishing up the day in Nevada.
Excellent.
So we did, three states in one day there.
Well, one thing I enjoyed from our previous talk was, besides your normal gear, water and whatnot, you brought diaries of the immigrants.
We did.
You actually were reading their words when you were taking breaks or camping at night. I just thought that was kind of awesome, where you were in someone's shoes, literally on the trail, and you read about their experiences and you're doing it.
Michael, I'm glad you brought that up because, like I said, we wanted to make it as authentic as possible. And these diarists, their words, their descriptions of the land still ring true today. Nevada is so unspoiled. It's one of the best trail states in the West. I think the only other state that rivals it is Wyoming in terms of having so much trail. But we used the diaries to help us find their immigrant camps, and we would try to camp as much as possible where we took 4 different diarists out with us, and our favorites were Byron McKinstry, who came west in 1850, and a diarist by the name of J. Goldsboro Bruff, who came west in 1849. Their diaries were superb. We tried to camp where they did. We had backpacks. I should say we took all our food in backpacks. Generally, it took us about 5 to 6 days between little settlements that we'd hit along the way, or towns, and camped under the stars like the immigrants. And the next shot is a creek that they hit, and they all camped on Goose Creek. It's in extreme northeast Nevada. One of our favorite stretches on the entire hike was the 90-mile stretch from the city of Rocks south to Thousand Springs Valley. And if you look real carefully there on the right-hand side, you'll just see a little short segment of trail there. It's kind of in the upper end of it. It's kind of hard to see, but the immigrants are coming at us, and they're now heading up Goose Creek they loved it. You could still drink the water there. It was very good water. And then the next shot will show some of the ruts that created by the wagons there. There's some just excellent trail ruts that you can see along Goose Creek. And if you see the willows out there, they would have been camped around those willows there, anywhere where they could get shade. And anyway, right near this vantage point where I took this shot was one of the highlights of our entire hike, and it's called Register Rock. And it was a sandstone rock where you could have seen in the emigrant days hundreds of names of emigrants and the dates they came through.
Wow.
So you can go to the next shot now. And this is where it is. That's the sandstone bluff. And we didn't think very much of it when we saw it, but on closer inspection, when we got up close and looked in the cavities there, we just saw dozens of names still left in the rock. So you can go to the next shot there and you'll see some of the names that the emigrants left. And there's a gentleman by the name of Dorland who came through in 1849. And somebody there drew what appears to be a Native American right below Dorland's name. And it was just fascinating to see dozens of these names left by the 49ers. And if you go to the next one, you can see some more of their names with that exceptional handwriting that they had back in the 1800s there. And this was the best rock of its kind we saw in Nevada. They did this all over just to kind of, someone would want to let their friends know that they were okay. And I think others were just kind of like modern graffiti writers that just like to let others know that they had come through.
So some of their family was behind them, and they're letting them know
that they were safe and that they had made it that far. And then the next shot will show some of the exceptional trail. This Goose Creek was one of our favorite stretches.
It looks beautiful.
It is, and this is a stretch of totally unspoiled trail. I don't believe a modern vehicle has been on it, and it's just past Little Goose Creek as the emigrants went. And that's my buddy Jeff Stewart of San Diego. He and I met doing a hike of the Pacific Crest Trail in 1984.
Wow.
And our love of the land and history of the West just led us to want to see what the pioneers saw in Nevada. And the next shot that you'll see is some more great original trail leading into Thousand Springs Valley. And like I said, this was one of our favorite stretches. Yeah, I'd say you could stay on a trail like this for 75% of the way for the 90 miles between the City of Rocks and Thousand Springs Valley. It's just, we can't go back in time to see what it was like for these pioneers to do it, but you can still go out there and walk the trail like they did with their diaries. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you, it puts a chill up your spine because you can just imagine the difficulty they faced coming west.
Well, before we go any further,
Sure.
You also had a guidebook
Yes.
that you followed to get you started on this process. It wasn't like you study what you're doing.
It took us 2 or 3 years of study, and the best thing I'd recommend to people who want to find the emigrant trails in Nevada, there's a group in Reno called Trails West. They put out these excellent guidebooks that, they're so detailed, anybody can follow them, and that's how we spliced the trail together for our hike. We just took 2 or 3 years, put in together, they put the markers, they put these markers out there, and then they're about 7 miles apart. And what you have to do is find the trail between the markers. Mm-hmm. And some of the trail is continuous between the markers, some is not. And that's what was one of the tricks we had to do, is to find the best routes where there wasn't the continuous trail. But like I said, 50% of the trail still can be followed. And Nevada's little changed, and it was just such a thrill to see this country.
It looks absolutely beautiful. And at the end of the show, we'll do a close-up of the book so you can see what we're talking about. And the next picture is about the...
Yeah, the next shot is taken in Thousand Springs Valley, and it's the Thousand Springs hot spring.
Wow.
And it's still bubbling out there just like it was in emigrant days. And this was a real thrill to find this because many of the emigrant diarists mention it in their diaries. We camped there that night, and the people at the Wine Cup Ranch there were so nice to us. They let us come in with the ranch hands and have dinner with them.
All right.
And I'm going to tell you, it sure beat the freeze-dried food that we were eating.
You were packing...
Right. Anyway, the next shot is about another 90 miles from Thousand Springs Valley. Now we're on the Humboldt River.
See a lot of water so far.
Yeah. Now I want you to make note of this. Look how nice that country is up on the the upper Humboldt, and this would have been near Wells, Nevada, and that's the East Humboldt Range behind there. But anyway, notice how green it is, and I want the viewers to notice how the land deteriorates when they go down the Humboldt River. But without this 300-mile stretch of the Humboldt River, this was their lifeline, and without it, they would not have been able to travel this route. So this Humboldt River was their lifeline, and without it, they couldn't have traveled this route across Nevada. So the next shot, if you want to get to it, is a shot taken east of Carlin, Nevada, west of Carlin, Nevada, and this is Emigrant Summit. And many people have driven I-80, and they probably wondered, now, why do they call that Emigrant Summit? Well, this is a stretch where the trail couldn't go along the river because it went through a narrow canyon called the Palisades Canyon. So it left the river, and I'd say about an 8-mile stretch of the trail is obliterated by I-80 now.
Oh, geez.
And so the immigrants would have, this is what they would have seen now if they were alive today. So for 8 miles, we walked along the highway. It was the only stretch that was obliterated by I-80 this way. And then right after that, though, the trail goes to the south off of I-80. So if you want to get the next shot, and it goes down a canyon, and you can still see the trail there. If you look in the close-up there carefully, just on the other side of that pond, you'll see a little bit of the trail there. This is on the way to a famous landmark called Gravelly Ford, major immigrant camp area. This was one of our favorite stretches of trail in Nevada, very remote. And if you want to get the next shot, I'll show you one of the reasons why it was one of the highlights for us, because here's the crossing at Gravelly Ford, and you can see the gravel there, how it got its name. But I'm going to tell you, it's the simple things when you're out hiking in the desert in the dead of center. We were dealing with upper 90-degree temperature, low 90 someday. And we took a bath that night in the Humboldt, and I'm going to tell you, we got on our backs. It barely went over us, but it was heaven. It wasn't, the water temperature wasn't too cold, it wasn't too warm, and you just get so dirty out there that it was just heaven to have a bath out there.
Well, I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's a luxury of the desert, just the simple things like that. And by the way, the days were typically, like I said, very hot. They were not fun, and that's why I think it was one of the most foolish things I've ever done. But at least we saw what it was like for the immigrants. Mm-hmm. But the evenings and the mornings were heaven. Up until about 10 o'clock, the desert is just so peaceful, and the birds are out. And I'd say that, you know, on our hike, we might have seen one party a day. You know, one maybe Jeep party, one group of people a day, and that's it. So a lot of solitude out there.
Well, that's the name of the game right there, is solitude, and this picture is very, very pretty.
And the next shot, and I'll show you another one, we couldn't get the shade of covered wagons like the pioneers, so we brought sun shelters, and this is our camp at Gravelly Ford.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah, and we get there at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I'm going to tell you, it's still hot, so we would just wait out the afternoon heat there, and that's my friend Jeff Stewart. And notice he has kind of a smile on his face because he's out of that hot sun, and he's a happy camper there. Well,
I tell you, Martin, I think getting some shade would be a fantastic thing at that point in the day. But right now we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to talk about more about the Emigrant Trail. Thank you.
What lies beyond the curve in the trail? What secrets are there? My feet carry me into its veiled mystery, and I want to taste the sweet air and hear the song bestowed by nature. Just this once. Until the next curve, the next trail, the next walk through the Carson Valley. The Genoa Foothill Trail System will connect the Carson Valley with the Tahoe Rim Trail, providing a wonderful trail system near the oldest town in Nevada. This is just one of many projects the Carson Valley Trails Association is working on for our communities, but we cannot do it alone. Please contact us by visiting our website and find out about becoming a member or signing up to help build our community trails. We're looking forward to seeing you out in the most beautiful land Nevada has to offer.
Hi, we're back from break, and I tell you, we've talked for about 40 minutes off camera about the history of Nevada, and I've really enjoyed so far the Emigrant Trail has been a great story you've been saying. And one of the things we talked about was water. And you said from doing this, you had a heck of a time with water, and it makes sense.
We did, and that was one of the biggest challenges, Michael, was water, of course, the summer, the desert. We needed at least a gallon a day, and I'm going to be honest, that was the minimum we carried. We needed more, but we couldn't carry it. The longest we went was a 28-mile dry stretch. We had to carry 2.5 gallons of water, 20 miles until we hit our next water source at the Rye Patch Dam. Water was a huge challenge. That's why I would never do a summer hike in the desert again like we did. We did it just because we wanted to see what it was like for the emigrants. But the fall is the time to do it. And I did do a later hike of the Applegate-Lassen Trail in the fall, the middle of September, and it was much cooler.
Well, you're talking about you're hiking in the summer, but you're hiking about 15 to 16 miles a day.
Yes.
That's a long way.
Michael, we started out walking 20 miles. I thought this would be a piece of cake because here we're used to the Pacific Crest Trail, these big climbs on the John Muir Trail and all that, and I thought, well, we're not going to have anything like that on the Nevada desert. What we did not factor in was the effect of the heat on our body and dehydration. We just couldn't get enough water. And like I said, we needed a gallon a day, or we really needed a gallon and a half a day, but could only carry a gallon. And we had to get permission, or what we did is we lined up water sources ahead of time from some ranchers. They were all super nice. We had to get the permission of 28 ranchers.
Yes, you said 28 ranches gave
to cross their property.
But also they gave you supplies as well.
They also gave us water. They I'm going to be honest, some of them thought we were crazy.
Well,
they said, now, why do you want to do this? And we told them we wanted to see what it was like to come west as a covered wagon pioneer, what it would have been like in the 1800s.
Well, that's why I like Nevada ranchers. They'll help you out, and they'll say what they think about you, too.
That is true. They told us to our face they thought that we were crazy. But and I got to be honest, my wife, when I told her the idea, kind of questioned our sanity also. So I'd never do this again. But our next slide up here, speaking of water, is
I saw that. That's what reminded me here.
Right, Jeff Stewart. Any chance you got? This is Rock Springs near Battle Mountain. And it's near a immigrant landmark called Stony Point, and now we're about 3.5 weeks into the hike.
Oh, okay.
Battle Mountain is roughly halfway between Elko and Winnemucca for those who have not been out there.
Okay.
And what we did is we stuck to the north side of the Humboldt River. There were trails down both sides in the immigrant days. We stuck to the trail on the north side because it was more remote, farther away, generally speaking, from the railroad tracks and I-80. So we pretty much had the land to ourselves out there. Didn't see a lot of people.
So essentially, you chose the land less traveled.
Yeah, exactly.
That was one of my favorite poems when I was a kid. Was they had choice of two paths, and they chose the one that was less traveled.
Right. We wanted it to be authentic, to stay away from civilization as much as possible. Generally speaking, it took us about 5 days between settlements or towns, and during that time, if you saw, some days we didn't see a soul. Other days we just see one guy in an off-road vehicle and that's it. Maybe a hunter, a rancher, and that's about it. You just don't see that very many people in rural Nevada, which makes it a great place to experience the land like the immigrants did, to see it like they did. So the next shot is one of the most historic areas we hit. This is the hill. It's called a volcanic formation called Iron Point. It's at the northern tip of Iron Point near Golconda, Nevada. This is the spot, a famous spot where the Donner Party, there was a fight between two members, John Snyder and James Reed. Their wagons were going up this very hill here. You can see the trail going up there. Their wagons got tangled. And I'm going to tell you, when you're in that desert hill all the time, it made Jeff and I irritable. It just wears you down. There's no shade out on the Humboldt, and you kind of get at each other's throats sometimes. But anyway, James Reed and John Snyder came to blows. One of them cussed at the other, and the other hit the other, and before you knew it, James Reed stabbed John Snyder in the heart and killed him. So on the top of that hill, one faction of the party camped up there. That was one of the highlights for Jeff and I. We also camped up on the top of the hill here, which we called Snyder Hill in his memory, but it's just a phenomenal stretch, no development around it. You can still see the trail, and the next shot will show you trail on Iron Point, heading away from the top of the hill. You can see it going through the sage, just beautiful stretch of trail, about 3 or 4 miles. And then the next shot will show it as it descends.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, you can just see it, so many miles of trail like that in Nevada. And this is Emigrant Canyon. And initially I thought that was the trail down there, but another group of people I talked to, I told you I talked to a lot of ranchers. I talked to the people at the Pinson Ranch near Golconda. And the woman there, her family had stayed there for generations. And she told me that that was not the original trail, that the Humboldt's flooded many times over the years. And so the ranchers were very helpful to, point out what was legitimate trail and what was not legitimate trail. So generally speaking, along the Humboldt River, it's flooded many times. You're not going to see the original trail there. But in areas like the previous shot up on Iron Point where it's away from the river, you're going to see the trail still as it cuts through the sage and rabbit brush and greasewood. Anyway, the next shot is... this is a sandy stretch, and this also speaks to the history of the Donner Party. An older man in the Donner Party by the name of Hardcoop got left behind on a sandy stretch of trail. Jeff and I feel that this is it. This would be to the west of Winnemucca, about 15 miles, and it just fit the description perfectly. And anyway, it was a sign that the Donner Party was breaking apart already in Nevada. Most people thought they broke apart in the Sierra at Truckee, but their troubles began in Nevada, and here they got so depleted in terms of their energy reserves and supplies that they had to abandon Hardcoop, this older gentleman, and he was never seen again. So they figure he died on the trail somewhere in this vicinity here. And, like I said, one of the problems for the immigrants is that they had to cross this in the summer at the worst time, and their energy, their food supplies were low. It was hot, but they had to do it to get over the Sierra by the fall. And the Donner Party was one of the parties that really gave later immigrants a sense of urgency, like, we got to get going. We got to get over those passes before the winter snows fall. And that's why they had to cross Nevada at the worst time. And also, they're running low on supplies, and the water's not that good. And so anyway, the next shot here, every once in a while, not very much because the relic hunters have kind of made off with most of the valuable surface debris, but this is an ox chain that Jeff found on the side of the trail. This would have been about 20 miles west of Winnemucca, and we're now about a month into our journey, and you can still find ox shoes, an occasional ox shoe, a lot of square nails, wagon parts you'll find, and a slide I'm going to show you in a little while from the 40-mile desert, you can still find a lot of rusted barrel hoops on the 40-mile desert stretch. And I'll get into that. But anyway, that's something Jeff found lying right beside the trail. And then the next shot is a shot, we're lucky. If we had come in 1849 with all the immigrants that came that year, I think there were 30,000 of them, the trail just got chopped up into fine dust like this. Well, actually, it was easier for Jeff and I because there wasn't the traffic out there. But every once in a while, we'd hit a stretch like this that showed us, that was real dusty, and we thought, God, this is what it was like in the immigrant days. And some of the diarists mentioned how they couldn't even see 20 yards in front of them. The dust was so thick from being kicked up by oxen. So,
oh, geez. Yeah,
so dust was a problem for them. And the next shot will show you, I told you earlier at the headwaters of the Humboldt up near Elko and Wells, it was that beautiful green meadow with the beautiful East Humboldt Mountains. Notice how dry it is now. Now we're down near Lovelock. And this was, by the way, one of our favorite stretches of trail, the 90-mile stretch between Golconda and Lovelock. You could stay on the authentic trail about 70% of the way. And you're on the north side of the Humboldt River and well away from I-80 and the railroad tracks here. But this just shows you a great stretch of trail. It's a continuous 25-mile stretch of trail from Rye Patch Reservoir into Lovelock.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't know if the immigrants would have seen it, and I don't know if we would have seen the beauty when we came through there that hot August day in 91. And the next shot is just showing a little more of the original trail that, few of any modern vehicles have ever traveled. This is right before they would have hit Lovelock. Your imagination just goes wild when you picture the string of wagons that, kicked up dust on this stretch. And the next shot is a shot of Lovelock. It was an oasis in the Emigrant days, and it was an oasis for us because we...
now things are turning green.
Right, exactly. And actually, Lovelock owes its existence to the Rye Patch Dam. It's allowed all this irrigation water. I mean, it's a farming center of Nevada along with Fallon. And the immigrants here had a more natural meadow area. It was called the Big Meadows. And so this would have been a nice stop for them. And we stayed at the, we thought, aptly enough, the Covered Wagon Motel. Right. So we kind of cheated here and there, but we thought, look at the immigrants, what they did. It made us appreciate the immigrants. For the Donner Party, they didn't have one single trading post between Fort Bridger in Wyoming and Sutter's Fort in Sacramento. For many of the immigrants, they didn't see any trading posts until they hit Dayton, Ragtown, and the Carson Valley. So the point is that, here we were in our air-conditioned rooms living like kings, and the immigrants, they didn't have any air conditioning. They didn't have any good water. They didn't have the safety nets that we did. If we ever got in trouble, we could have gone down to I-80 and got help. So it just really made our respect for the immigrants shoot up, and all I can tell you is they were tough people to endure this tough journey west.
Well, there's probably a lot of native Nevadans watching the show saying that's what my great-great-grandparents did.
I agree with you. There's a lot of descendants, of the pioneers who live in Nevada. In fact, the woman who introduced my wife and I, Nan Spina, in Reno, her mother or her great-great-grandparents were the Capels, and they were 49ers, and Capels Lake is named after them.
Well, your slides are fantastic, and you also take these and show it to the elementary school?
I do. I show it from time to time to elementary schools, and here in Carson, Eagle Valley Middle School, actually, with Chris Nurska. He's the teacher, and I love the students. They come up with such great questions. Remember one asked us if we ever got in a fight. I was telling him how irritable you get being out in the hot sun, and he said, "Did you ever get in a fight with your buddy?" And I said, "Well, a couple times, we kind of got in each other's throats, never an actual fist fight, but I could see why the John Snyder, James Reed incident would have occurred."
Well, you almost feel like you're there, and it looked hot.
It was.
It looked very, very dusty and dirty, and
yes.
And you could just picture the wind hitting you and the sunshine hitting you, and
right.
Maybe even an oasis or mirages and things.
Yeah, you would see that.
And you're all of a sudden, I don't know. I just feel like I'm there.
Right. Well, you could still feel what the immigrants do because the land is so little changed. Let's go to the next slide here. I'm just going to show a couple here from this was considered the worst stretch on the entire journey west, the 40-mile desert. It was 40 miles, no water, no forage for the stock. Thousands of animals died here. A lot of wagons were abandoned here. This is on the 40-mile desert heading to Ragtown. And the next shot will show you some more of the trail in the 40-mile desert. You can see how bleak it is. And for Jeff and I, it was not that bad because we didn't have starving families to push across. But this is one of the highlights of the trail in Nevada.
Well, I tell you, Martin, it's absolutely breathtaking, some of these pictures. And I really, like I said, I feel like I'm there, and we're going to have to end the show and hopefully have you come back and see us. So anyways, thank you, Martin, for being on Nevada Trails, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. I really enjoyed it.
Really appreciate it. It's been Michael Smith for Nevada Trails.